Doing it again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just got tired of it. I just get tired of it. I get tired of it glitching. So she has watched me. I download it every time. I tested it 3 times. It played through. And when I hit go live, it glitches.
Yep.
I've even tested my internet speed today. I've done all. You've watched me do this for 15 minutes. By the way, this is my mother.
Hi.
It's my mother, Jane. I thought since we're close to Mother's Day, it would be really good to do an episode with my mother. I am blessed. I had wonderful parents. I really did. I had great parents, and I attribute it to why I'm a well-adjusted person. I really do. It's why I'm as sane as I am, and I'm analytical, and everything was because of the foundation that I had. But what is awesome also with our relationship is that we have been able to transition as adults into best friends. And I thought this would be a wonderful topic because I really want to delve into communications going forward. I think that would be a wonderful thing for most people. I studied interpersonal communications in college, and I never even thought about it. I just kind of fell into it, and I was really good at it, and I loved it once I got into it. And I remember thinking, why the hell didn't they teach us this from elementary school forward? And when I say interpersonal, I don't mean public speaking. I mean being able to talk to everyone in your environment. You know, whether it's your parents, your siblings, people you're dating, your friends, your coworkers. It's how you read people, deal with them, and how you express yourself intelligently. And it's a lost art.
I think we concentrate more.
Loud. Use the teacher voice.
Okay. I think we concentrate more on having you communicate with your friends.
Yes, I think there's
not
a huge
as much with parents or adults.
Right.
Now, you had that opportunity to be with a lot of adults. So
you saying I didn't have friends? Is that what you're saying?
No, but you had a lot of adults in your life.
I did.
And
I don't have any siblings. I didn't have like neighborhood kids that I played with.
No, I had to import all the children. So yes, there weren't any in our neighborhood. So
we lived in a neighborhood of like retired adults when I grew up.
It's just
it was all grandparents. I mean, it was fun, but
grandparents.
It was
aunts,
not normal for most of the kids I went to school with. I had a very different home life than them.
That's when your vocabulary was much more adult.
Yeah. I was articulating things very differently.
And just even that word.
Yeah.
Articulating, and your friends would look like, what's that? So
I got made fun of for being a dictionary.
I
got made fun of. Hi, Ash. Hi, Filter Dog. They all saying hi, Mom.
Hi.
Hi, Sean Joe. Thank you for the cookie. Thank you so much, guys. So, okay. So you were, your life's passion was to be a teacher.
Yes.
And you had been a teacher how many years before you had me?
77 minus 1964. So what
Yeah.
is that? 23 years?
Something like God.
14.
Had
to
you been teaching 20 years before you had? No.
No, I
No.
probably
No.
14.
Yeah. No, because college and stuff. No. And you hadn't met dad. And yeah, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we were
Math is
married
hard.
almost 10 years before you came. So even after we were married. So it was a long time of teaching.
Right. And you had taught elementary kids. That was your specialty.
That was my specialty. I had kindergarten, first, second, fourth, and fifth.
Keep talking loud.
Okay. So I had everything.
Use the teacher voice.
I had everything but third grade.
Had a girl.
So, yeah.
So the cool thing, like I remember like my childhood room was set up like an old like I don't know if they do it now, but like a kindergarten room.
Yes. That
So-
was my kindergarten
Yeah.
background. So
So I had like
Yes.
reading stations, I had puzzle stations.
it didn't look much like a bedroom. It
No,
really
there was
looked
just a
like
bed in the corner.
Yeah. It was we had a reading area, a little cooking area, a little housekeeping
Yes.
area.
Yes.
You had a science area.
Mhm.
You had blocks. You had all of these
All this
different-
stuff to stimulate my brain.
Right.
And then I got to school and they undid a lot of what you
Yes.
taught me. They ruined.
Unfortunately, when you got to school, it was paperwork.
Yeah, I hated
And
paperwork.
she did not like
Oh, I
paperwork.
still hate
so-
paperwork.
but no, she
I mean,
did
I don't even like
science.
checking my email. I hate paperwork so much. I don't even like email. Like I'm
But
bad. I
She
really don't like
did,
it.
a lot of science exploration,
Yes.
I would say.
Yes.
And she just, even from about 3 years old on,
Mm.
that you did that in the room. And we would have things like the flowers.
Yeah, there's
those.
a flower where we grow. We call it Queen Anne's lace. It's a beautiful white flower.
Mhm.
But we would do science experiments. Like we would stop on the side of the road and we would clip some of the little flowers. I guess technically they're weeds.
No, they're flowers.
Are they flowers?
They are
They grow
flowers.
naturally everywhere where we're at. So then we would go home and we would dye them.
We would put different colors of food coloring
Yes. Yes.
into water jars, and then she watched over a time and she learned osmosis.
Yes.
with
Thank you,
that.
Vanessa DC, for the cookie. Thank you, hun. Good to see you, Patriot Drummer. Duppy, I did not eat paste. I was the weirdest child. I did not,
No.
I didn't, yeah, like, I mean, I would freak out if I got dirty.
Oh, she
I
really
couldn't
did.
handle it. I could not, like, I was
If
so
she
not a
got
normal child.
one little piece of something on a finger, we had to clean it.
Like, I would stop and hold it out. Like, nothing
Yes.
would continue until I was
No.
Clean. Like,
She had to be clean.
I couldn't do it.
She was not a messy child at
No.
all.
I was not.
So,
Then I got to school and everybody was like eating paste and boogers. And I'm like, what is going on?
yeah.
This is a strange place.
Yeah. Why would they do
Why are they
something
doing these
crazy like
things?
that?
And I'd be like, why are you doing that? And they'd be like, I tasted God. And I'm like, huh? Why?
Yeah.
Like, I did not understand
That's-
kids.
Oh, I know. And I had students that stuffed the crayons up their nose and all sorts of things. So, yeah.
Patriot Drummer thinks she looked great. She does look great. Ask her how old she is. Mhm. Oh, yeah. I shocked the crap out of people around town. We had a waitress that asked me if that was my older sister.
Yes. In the
That made
last
her
day
day.
or two.
That made, okay, she's 81.
I'm
Yeah.
turning 82 this year.
Yes, you do
So-
look fantastic.
Wow.
You've survived 4 rounds of cancer and beaten them. You've had a run of
Yep.
it, and you've done really, really amazing with everything.
Well, thank you.
Yes,
That's what we do.
yes. We could do
So,
another show on overcoming odds. You'd be a good one for that.
I would be happy to do that with you.
I'm reading the chat while I'm doing this, and I'm trying to see over the mic stand. It's okay. I'd rather they can hear you. I'll work around it. Beach plum. You're funny, Ash. So, how did you like? Was it hard being a really good teacher and then having teachers mess with your kid?
Yes.
Did
I
you
thought
want to?
about should I be honest or
No,
not? Yes.
you may
Yes,
as
it
well.
was. And your father and I would go to the parent conferences,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would look at me and say, should we ever go to another parent conference? Do you think it's because you're a teacher that we're
That it
having
sucks
these
so bad.
difficulties talking to them? And
Yeah.
they would make all kinds of excuses
Yeah.
sometimes. Only a couple of them. You had some marvelous
I
teachers
did.
too.
I did. I had several, and I still see them around town, and I adore
I
them.
tried to make sure she was in some of those
Yeah,
classes.
you finagled and tried to request me with some of them.
Because I knew they were
Yeah.
ones that were more flexible in learning styles.
And the older I
things.
got, the less you could help me,
Yes.
because you just couldn't. I mean, you as a parent, I feel like you can go into an elementary school and you can negotiate
Yeah.
or persuade a little more, perhaps. But the further up the institutional ladder you go, you're just in the system. Like, that's it. At
Well,
least that's how it is in our area.
I was going to say, by the time you get in high school, I shouldn't say they don't want you to come, but we got the distinct impression when we went
Quit meddling. Yeah.
that it was like, yeah,
Quit meddling. She's our problem now.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so, I mean, I even had one teacher that just said, what are you doing here? And I thought, well, it's parents' night. I thought I should come, but
they didn't
they
want
didn't
it.
particularly want me there.
Yeah,
So,
I did not have a very good high school experience,
so it was,
to say the least.
it was different.
It was. would you homeschool if you, like, in today's environment? I know you would.
Oh, yes. Today's environment, I would homeschool you from the beginning. Oh, no. No, from what I hear from my friends and my former students that are teachers.
There's
Oh,
litter boxes in our little small town in the schools. Like,
yeah.
teachers talk and they don't like it.
No,
They don't like it at
no,
all.
no. They
Mm-hmm.
have ones that just meow,
God,
and no matter
How
what
do you-
they ask them, they meow. So
I'm telling you, like, that
know.
to me, it's abuse, because the point of school is to prepare the child for life. And again, it
Yes.
goes back to communication. You can't function in life if you're just going to sit there and fucking meow and try and,
Right.
like, I don't know, lick your hand and stuff. Like, I
mean,
don't even know what you do with that.
I was going to say, I don't know how you teach reading and
How-
math and
Yeah. How do you do that if
With-
they're just going to meow?
yeah.
They're going to meow you the math
So,
problem? What?
no.
What? Yeah. No. No.
Nope, I would be.
I think it's abuse.
homeschooling, and I would love it. I really would.
You would.
Yep, I would. So,
Yeah.
but I did prepare some good teachers. I hope
Yes.
they're allowed to teach.
So after so you spent a long career in the elementary schools, then you took some time off to be home with me for my formative years. And then once I was back in school, then you went back to school too.
Yes, when you started 6th grade,
Mm-hmm.
I went back,
Mm-hmm.
and it was. I checked in several places, and luckily was hired at those. But I chose the university.
Yeah.
So I taught 10 years then at the university.
Yeah. You got teacher of the year, and then they phased out your position.
Yeah,
Oh, the irony.
with a full-time doctor.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
but my students were one semester from student teaching, so they were
Mhm.
pretty far along in their careers, and it was really good. And I worked with a team of our dean and another extraordinary professor
Mm-hmm.
in a project that we did with at the very beginning of a lot of technology in the classroom.
Yeah, that
It
was
it
you were
really
part of that
before-
pioneering where the kids
Yeah.
were able to do laptop work,
Yes.
which at the time, this was what, the late 90s?
Oh yeah.
I mean, it was groundbreaking. Like, you went
It
to
was-
MIT and
oh, it
you
was
you
the
presented
late-
and
it
did all,
was-
like, she's
late
fabulous. She
late
did all this stuff.
80s to 90 is when we started doing that.
Yeah.
And I have to confess, I did not even know how to turn a computer on. And I said that to the dean, you know. I said that to him. I said, I don't know I don't know where the on button is on this thing. And he said, so I just attended the computer classes with my students and learned how to use the computer.
Did you give them extra credit if they helped you?
No.
I would have negotiated for
Yeah.
that. I would have been like, come sit next to me, teach. I'll
And
help you
then
through this one and you help me through your class.
one of the most fun things we did with it was called Professor for a Day.
Oh, I remember that program.
And the
Yeah.
students came on campus
Mm-hmm.
for the day and they became the professors.
Now, these
And
were elementary kids. Though,
yes, and
to
they
keep
had,
it in perspective, like
they
how
had
different this was.
tags on that called them
Professor. Mm-hmm.
Professor Real or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And they got pretty upset when people didn't address them in that manner too. They were funny.
They were like, but I
But-
earned my name tag.
But
I have it on.
Television stations, different ones all
Mhm.
covered it too because it was a unique project. But ours was, and they actually taught our college students because they had
Mhm.
less knowledge and work with the computers than the
Isn't that
students
funny?
did. But also, the students were fearless on that computer.
Mm-hmm.
They would try anything. They would just
Yeah.
punch buttons. And, you know, I was scared to death to do that I'd lose a program or something. And until the dean told me, he said, you know, hey, we'll just reload it if you lost it. Don't worry about it. So
Carl was great.
Carl was wonderful.
He was a
So,
great
yeah,
man.
it really, that really helped. And it made good learning experience for
Mhm.
me as well.
Mhm.
And I tried to train that turtle in that one program, and we all had trouble with that turtle.
What was the turtle?
It was in, I'm trying to think.
Was it like an actual, like a program of turtle doing something?
Well,
I don't
yes,
remember the
and
turtle.
you had to programming going left,
so
right.
you were teaching them to write codes.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know how to do it, but yeah, it was crazy. So we stumbled through that one, but we found some easier programs after that. But
Yeah.
it
Coding
was-
is hard.
Yeah,
I mean, it's
Programming
learning a
is-
different language.
right. And for an old person, teaching a old dog new tricks was something else. But it was
were what,
wonderful.
50
we
back
got
then?
to
You were, what, 50? Something like that.
Yeah, I guess that was.
You weren't that old.
I started out there in like 87 or 88. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just remember all the stuff with that project being in the mid 90s, because once that project was successful and you had a few years of data under the belt, then it took notice.
Oh, yeah.
Then you were traveling around the United States.
Yes. And we won some national
Yeah.
awards and
Yeah.
everything for that program.
Did you ever envision what you were doing? Like, what was the goal of it back then versus how, excuse me, how attached everybody is in class? Like, they can't put down their iPhone. They can't put down, like, I know that was never what you all envisioned.
No,
You just envisioned it as a tool,
as a tool.
not a crutch, not
No.
everything that you needed to survive in the
Not
world.
that everybody would be separated somewhat,
Yeah.
you know, doing
Isolated with
those
it.
type of things. It was just meant to enhance the learning.
Yeah. And it's a new skill. And that was
Yeah.
coding. That was right before the tech boom. It was right before email. I think we barely had internet. Maybe you had
Yeah.
email, but I mean, email,
Oh, yeah, we had email.
I didn't have
I was
email
even
until
learning
college.
that.
Like, I think
Well,
email was
I-
created maybe my senior year in high school.
I
That's how
had
old I am.
email through college. I didn't have it before.
Yeah,
'cause
like,
I didn't know how to turn a computer on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had to use it at college.
Yeah.
with
I
my
remember
students.
internet and dial up, and that was stuff that like only some people had.
Mhm.
It was very expensive. Like, you could have it in
Yes.
the 80s during that time frame, but you had to have like all of this expensive stuff, and then you had to have a separate phone line, and then you had to have
Yeah.
a cradle, and you literally would take the phone off and set it on the cradle, and it would dial and do the thing.
We
And
had a
yeah,
lot
like,
of
I didn't have any
students
of that.
at
That was crazy to
first
me.
who really didn't have any of that experience till they got to college. So it was,
Duppy says he saw the same thing with calculators.
oh, yes.
Duppy is a brilliant scientist and an engineer, but
Ah,
he was in college in early 80s ish. So yeah, it was in that pre-phase of all that too.
hey, he could have been one of my students.
He could have been. I don't think he was though.
I don't think so either,
I don't think he was.
but it could have been.
It's possible.
Yes.
It's possible. So, okay. How do you think, if we were to teach people fundamentals of communication and how they could improve at least interpersonal communications, what do you feel like would be good choices?
One of the first things is listening.
Yes.
And I used that, and that was hard.
That was the hardest thing for
That's the
students.
hardest thing for students
Yeah.
because they want to chime in and they think they know it and they know all about it, and they forget to listen and learn that way too.
Mm,
And that was a hard skill, but that is one of the best and one of the smartest you can do. I mean, let's face it, we all open our mouth and put our foot in it when we haven't listened and learned first.
oh, yes.
And that is one of the biggest ones of the skills. And I taught language arts. So,
Yeah.
and the listening was one
God,
of the
I
big
remember
ones.
how mad you were when they stopped teaching writing. They
Yes.
stopped teach. So what she ended up doing in the college level was, as I phrased it, because people will be like, well, what does your mom do? And I'm like, she teaches student teachers how to become teachers.
Yep.
That's literally what that was my
That was
explanation
what
to
I
people.
did.
And you were brilliant at it. And then like she had
I
to
think
teach
she's
them.
a little biased.
But she would teach them how to write on the chalkboard. And I
Oh.
remember thinking at the time when she was telling me about that, I'm like, what do you mean you have to teach them how to write on the chalkboard?
Well, you really do, because I think a teacher needs to do that.
Hmm.
And
But it's harder than you like. It never
oh, it's
occurred.
much harder.
It's really
than you
hard to
think.
do. Like she was like, I remember having that discussion. I was in your classroom one day.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do you mean you teach them to do this? Like you just write on the board. She's like, all right, you do it. Let's see.
Well, it starts and it goes uphill or downhill.
Yeah, and
or
then it all
something.
looks, yeah, it's
not
actually much
smooth,
harder.
It's not even legible part of the time. So
And I remember how mad you were. Like I remember the discussions going back into university when they were talking about getting rid of cursive. It started with cursive. Now they don't
Right.
even print. They don't even
I-
teach them to print hardly now.
I think
Like,
they
it's
might
scary.
be going back to it. From
Well,
what
they
I'm
need
hearing.
to.
I can't
Poor things.
imagine if people, of course, they just assume they would be on a computer or a cell phone and just type or say everything. But people need to read it. And
Yes.
if you don't write it, you have trouble reading it.
Yes.
And they couldn't
It slows
read
you
it.
down.
And there's things called contracts
Yes.
and things that you need to be fully understanding and reading in life.
Yeah.
And you know, that was scary to me, that
Yeah. At the
students were
time,
not going to have this.
I didn't, and I was so young, you know, I was,
And I'll have to admit, her writing is not the best.
Fine.
I worked on it too.
my writing is fine. Okay. It's not calligraphy, but it's fine.
No, it is not calligraphy.
Compared to the chicken scratch nowadays, I look brilliant.
Well, yes, you can read your name.
Yeah.
That's good.
I write better than my husband.
Yes, you do.
I write better than most
You have to
doctors and a lot
know
of
what he's-
professionals.
Except your dad.
Mm.
And he wrote.
Yeah, he did.
He wrote very well, and he was left-handed. But he took time, and his thought was
Mm.
nurses and all, if they can't read it,
Yeah.
it's
How are they going
really,
to do it?
it's
Yeah.
dangerous.
It's very dangerous
So
because one letter off can be,
oh,
or if they can't read a number in particular with a dosage, it's very
right.
dangerous.
So he took time to really do that.
Duppy's asked us a question. He
Oh.
says, ask your mom what she thinks about hyperactivity ADHD diagnosis. Because he was diagnosed with that. My husband was too. His
Yeah.
parents refused to put him on anything. They were like, whatever, he's a boy. He's hyper. He's a boy.
Personally, it seemed like to me there were a few too many of those diagnoses.
All of a sudden, it was like
It
a
was-
trend.
Yes, it was
Kind of like some other trends
yes.
with children now.
But I do think there is a syndrome with it, and I do think some children really work with that.
Yeah.
But I think if you start early and you work with them, I don't think it's a problem.
I don't think they need medicine. I think they need
I
like
think they need
activity and stimulation
activities and
correctly.
attention
Yeah.
to work on.
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Because I mean, my husband's an example of that, and he's a wonderful, well-adjusted, brilliant adult.
Yes.
You know, he does fine.
You just channel
Well, and some of
their
his like,
activities.
yeah, and I think that's what his parents did. They
Mhm.
ultimately just tried to get him involved in more things and really push his interests to keep his mind.
to
because-
keep him busy.
The smarter the person, the more you have to occupy their mind.
Yes,
It really is.
we did.
Yeah.
It took some work, but
When you get
we
bored,
kept
you get in
coming
trouble.
up with things, and we kept her in a lot of activities,
Mhm.
dancing,
Yeah.
theater,
Yeah.
in advanced programs over in Louisville,
Yeah.
summer programs. But she took. She was also in gymnastics and
For a few years.
yeah,
Yeah.
all of these that we kept.
Just kept me
her-
going.
Just kept her going, kept her interested in things and busy. And I think it really that really helps.
They're laughing at you telling stories on me.
Oh, I've got.
Yeah, I know.
It's dangerous having me on.
I know. It occurred to me when I was getting ready before this. I'm like, this could go bad. I don't
Yeah.
know. Could be. We'll see. Yeah, I think Ash has a good point. She says asking little children to sit and do paperwork for hours is insane. And I agree. Like, I feel like school kind of sets them up for failure in a lot of instances.
That is one thing. Now, you have some children that are excellent at paperwork, and that's their thing. But I think you do need to
Keep
continue
speaking up.
to help them
Scott can't hear you.
do more
Dude, her mic's
than
on full blast.
paperwork. But yes, you just really that was sad to me, and it happened to her. I think.
Yeah, I was a good example of your active, intelligent child, and then you put them in the institution.
She had 1 year of that, and it was really not.
Oh, it was.
good.
We changed schools.
Yeah.
I couldn't deal with it. I mean, I was a mess.
Well,
I
I
was
saw
not
that
dealing
the
with
next year she got a different kind of teacher
it.
who really challenged students to do more things and to use
Miss
thinking
McGregor.
skills.
Miss
Um,
McGregor was great.
That was your first grade.
Yes, you can tell they're good. I remember them. I
Yeah.
remember the good ones.
Second was not
Mhm.
good. Third was great
Mm-hmm.
again, and fourth and fifth. But again, you have to. Children learn in different ways.
Yeah, you want to speak to the different. That might be a good thing. I wanted to see and have that conversation with you or Matt from Apogee about the different styles, because I think if a parent can identify young what
Mm.
styles the children learn from, because you were able to do that with me. That's why my room was
Right.
set up the way it was, because that was the most efficient way for me to learn with
Well, and
the way my mind
Gardner-
worked.
Gardner was one of the main people who initiated this
Mm.
a number of years ago, and he had the different learning styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I tried to practice that in my classroom in college
Hmm.
because not all of the students, could learn the same way. So we did things, whether it was speaking, listening,
Hmm.
um, and
Trying to enhance their
trying
communication
to enhance
skills.
their communication skills, and even to the fact of some were great at the paperwork.
Hmm.
They really were,
Hmm.
and that's what they focused on.
Those are like engineering people.
Mathematicians,
Yeah, like
those type,
they're
like
very.
your Uncle Art.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh God.
And
Yes.
so, you know, their style was that.
Hmm.
But some, I mean, we did music, we
Yeah.
did art in my class.
Hmm.
And so we tried to reach out, and when they were doing different presentations, they were to use those different learning styles.
So the pushback that parents get now, I can just envision this happening would be, well, how can you expect me to implement multiple learning styles when I have 25 kids?
Yes, I heard that.
A lot.
Yeah.
It's not
Uh,
true. You can do it.
you
She
can
did it
do
all the
it.
time.
You can do it. And if you've ever been in a resource room
Hmm.
or a room where children struggle with different abilities,
Hmm.
you see that teacher use those every day, because if she has 20 students, they're probably in 20 different places in her classroom.
Wow.
And they may be from a first grade to a fifth grade.
Well, and now the reading levels and everything are just plummeting with these
Oh,
kids. They're going to
of course
blame
they are.
COVID, but I honestly, the reading
Yeah.
levels and the it's been dropping for years. I mean, COVID was a gut punch to the system for sure.
But,
But I mean,
it's just
they've
not
been
taught
failing
now.
kids.
There's a lot of other
Yeah.
things going on in
There's a
classrooms
lot
and
of other
not
things they're teaching
necessarily
them.
teaching. But
Mm,
um, but if you think about those resource teachers, that's what they deal with all the time.
yeah.
And they
Yeah.
reach out to wherever their student is
Hmm.
and take them from there. And so it just makes no sense to me. Yes, it's harder and it's more work,
Hmm.
but if you really love teaching and you love seeing your students succeed, that's what you do. That's what you do.
What advice would you give people that have, let's say, teenagers? Because I know some in the chat have teenagers.
Mhm.
Um, how would you encourage them to strengthen their relationship with the child? Because it's a fine line. And I think teenage is the hardest years
Oh, it
because you
is.
still have to guide them, but you have to keep it so they're comfortable to come to you because they get hit with the onslaughts all the time of junk.
Right.
So they have to feel comfortable coming to you without fear of repercussion, and that
Right.
has got to be so incredibly challenging, and I think probably today more than ever.
Probably is.
Like, it
It
was
was
it was
challenging even
challenging,
then.
and I didn't have iPhones, and I mean, we just had mean girl in your face meme.
Yeah.
Like, I didn't have to deal with social bullying online. I
And the
I can't even
fact,
imagine.
when you have a bright child
Hmm.
who's interested in so many
Oh
things,
God, who couldn't narrow anything down because I
right.
liked everything.
And so then it becomes even more of a challenge, because they are bombarded by friends and things
And pulling
and
them.
pulling them in so many different directions
Hmm.
because you liked so many different things.
Right, I did, and the things that I liked, they were opposite spectrum.
Yes.
They always were.
Hmm.
Like, yeah. I mean, I was just one of those weird kids.
She was in a lot of theater
Mm,
and dance.
mhm.
So she was in the arts, but yet she loved the subjects
Mhm. I was good
very
at
much.
STEM. I was some.
Hmm.
I did that a lot.
Right.
So, thank you, Ash, for the cookie. Yeah, Braves piano, 2 teenagers, homeschool.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I would have really enjoyed that, but my husband was
He was
very
he was adamant
interested.
about forcing me through the process.
Yes, he felt that She needed public education because I even wanted to put her in a private school.
Yeah, I know you tried. I would have done better.
Yes,
Academically, I would have done
she did
much
much
better.
better in the summer programs that we had
Yes.
you in, which told me
Yes.
you would have done much better
Yeah.
in a private school
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
But he felt it was extremely important for her to be socialized.
Let me translate
And-
that. He wanted me to be able to stand up to mean people and look them in the eye and tell them to fuck directly off in a very polite way. His statement was, you can tell a person to go to hell to their face, and if you do it correctly, they'll ask you for directions.
Yes.
That was my father, and he was so right.
Yes.
He was so right.
He was right, and he was
I
such
still-
a gentleman, and he
yeah.
could do it.
I still wish I had not gone to public high school.
Yeah.
I will never change on that. But I feel so bad for so many of the kids now. Like they have
Yes.
it infinitely harder than I did. Thank you,
Yes.
Braves Piano, for the cookie. Yeah, the prayers for everybody with it. I know Ash has teenagers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. I
Mm.
met her 16-year-old.
Ah,
She's cute. She's adorable.
well,
she's
I
very
think
quiet.
keeping those lines of communication open
Mm-hmm.
as a family, sharing love, and
Family
having the
meals.
children know that over and
Yeah.
over and over. You can't say it enough that they know that you love them.
Yeah.
And even if you do something wrong, I may dislike what you did,
Yeah.
but
This
I
is key.
love you,
This is key.
and that never changes.
Yeah.
So I may want to correct something you did, but I love you and will always love you.
Yeah.
And I think we got that across.
Yeah.
I have to tell this one.
Oh
on her
God.
because it's when she was at the babysitter, and she was only about 3 or 4.
Oh, I'm not going to remember this one.
And you told Vicky, who was her babysitter
Oh
one
my
day.
God.
Vicky asked about something, I don't remember what, but she couldn't wait to tell me when I got there to pick her up. She said, I think it's the sweetest thing. And she said, I just teared up with it. She said, Mary Ellen said, my mommy loves my daddy loves my mommy, and they both love me. And I thought, that's what you want to get across to your child. It really is.
And to have that come out of a 3-year-old,
Yes.
that's instilled deep.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was lasting.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we had our things where she didn't agree, and she had to come home earlier than others.
Yeah, I was much more.
She
I had
didn't have a
so many
car.
more rules than everybody else. Like I had
Yes.
more rules than all my friends.
Yes.
All of my friends. Everybody got to do shit that I didn't get to do. Everybody.
And she did. And she didn't have a car.
Mhm.
She thought there was going to be one in the drive when she turned 16, but we had to
Everybody else got.
shatter that.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right. You don't need a car.
I bought my own clunker in college.
That's right.
I paid $700 for it. Came with
No.
a baseball bat.
You paid 500 and you sold it
That's
for
right.
7.
I did. I made a profit.
She bought it from one of the
I
professors
forgot I did that.
that had it. And after a couple years, she sold it for a little more. He got a kick out of that. But
I was a capitalist from the beginning.
that's right. But it was, it was important that she learn to be loved for herself
Yeah.
and not for the clothes she wore.
And that's a hard
or
lesson
the
for children.
cars that she could take everybody for a ride in. Were they just hanging out with her because she had the car and could drive?
Because I borrowed the car from
Yep.
Dad. Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you,
And,
Lance, for the gold pills. Good afternoon, hun. Thank you.
So that, those were hard lessons at the time.
Yeah.
But we kept telling her, you're going to be happier later. And I think she was.
I was. I
Yeah.
was. I learned so much more about myself when I got to college.
And you learn who your friends
God,
are.
did I?
Boy,
Oh,
you-
did I?
You learn that if
Yep.
you're not riding them around or paying for
Yep.
everything.
And I couldn't. I did not come from a wealthy family.
No.
No. I I was not that. I was strictly your middle road child, you know. That was our family.
That's right.
We've always been that way.
And you worked.
I did. I got my first job when I was 16, and I was working 2 and 3 jobs at a time in college.
Right.
I paid my way through college. I didn't take out loans and do all that stuff.
No.
I-
You had
I got some scholarships
scholarships
and I got jobs and paid for the rest.
Yeah.
I did it.
we paid for some.
A little bit, but I mean,
But
not-
it was. You
yeah.
appreciate it
Yeah.
differently
when you
when you've earned it in
Mhm.
that respect. And I had worked and paid for mine, and your dad worked,
God,
I
did
think,
he?
about 10 different jobs.
Yeah,
And
he really
getting
and he worked
through-
some really not glamorous jobs.
Oh no, he made biscuits at Pillsbury, and he
He worked in a
delivered
morgue.
mail. He worked at the hospital as a orderly, and then he went to the funeral home and embalmed at night.
Yeah.
And he worked at a powder plant up
Mhm.
here.
Yep.
He just worked at a number
Yeah.
of jobs, which it took to get through school.
Because you didn't go in debt then, you just worked your butt off.
Yep.
Generally.
That's what we tried to
Yeah.
do.
That
He-
was
he
it's very
had
different
some,
now.
but not like they do now. But yep, we worked on those. So
Yeah, I know what you mean, Karen Allen. I never could get away. So my mom was a teacher, my father was a doctor. I couldn't even pretend to be sick and get away with it. I
Nope.
never could miss school. I never could no. I never
No.
got away with anything. I never snuck, but I was a good kid. Like I never snuck out. I never lied. I mean, I might have fibbed just slightly, but I didn't lie. You know what I mean? Like I might have stretched it a little bit. Like I'll be home in 10 minutes and I was there in 15, knowing I was going to be there in 15. I just said 10. You know what I mean? Like because I didn't want to
Yeah.
get yelled at on the phone. It was that kind of silly stuff.
yeah.
Duppy, you're silly. So, well, what advice would you? So, somewhere around in college, you and I transitioned from the parent relationship to friends.
Yes, and the old adage that they say that the older the child gets, the smarter you get.
I'm an example of that.
And that is really true
Yeah.
because you think they're in high school, that your parents were never young, they don't understand anything. And
They never dated. They just matriculated this
They
way.
just suddenly were adults.
Mhm.
But you do get smarter, and
Mhm.
that transition happens. But I think we also had another life-changing
Yeah.
experience in college because
Yeah,
she lost
did.
her father,
Yeah.
and that made us
That changed
even
everything.
closer.
I was really hostile for a few years after that.
She was.
I was just downright hostile.
She was very bitter over
Yeah.
the loss, and
And the people I was in school with were very cruel during that time period. They were very nasty.
well, I
Um,
think also students in college, most of them had not faced anything like that.
they were incredibly selfish.
So they just figured, they were going along La La Land and party this weekend and all, and that wasn't where she was.
No.
And that was very upsetting to her that they did not understand
Anything.
how
anything.
life really is and the seriousness of it. And they were just in a different place. They were
Mhm.
still quite young, and that's what they were experiencing. And they had not gone through something that changed their family or lost
Mhm.
someone like that.
Yeah.
And I remember some of them, were making some comments when it
3 weeks after we had buried him, I had
Yeah.
somebody actually look at me and say, "Well, it's been a few weeks. I mean, aren't you over it yet?"
right.
And when I say they were cruel, I'm not kidding.
And that's
They're lucky I wasn't prone to violence and punching people. Like I
Well,
got hostile.
And again, that is somebody who hasn't experienced anything serious
I
like
think they're
that in
just
their
mean
life.
people.
They have been sheltered and they were in college, which was to be a fun time. And that's what
And
they were doing.
I was officially the wet blanket after that for a
Yeah.
while,
Right.
for a long while, really. So
And that happens.
that experience obviously drew us closer together, but like we have just matriculated into being, hey, don't do that. Don't do that, kitten. Like you're my best friend.
Yeah.
You know?
And I think you get to that stage because if there's anyone you feel you can really trust.
I think it goes back to the original statements
Yeah.
that you were making a few minutes ago, talking about making sure the child knows that no matter what, you love them. Like you may
Right.
not agree with them, you may not like some of the things they do, but you still love them. And I
Yes.
think that foundation is where our relationship. Stop.
And I think many
Stop.
times
Sorry.
now with the generations,
Yeah.
that's a problem for people.
Yeah.
And we are a generation apart, but right,
Mhm.
because I had her much later in life. But that didn't seem to really do that to us.
No.
And I think the first time she realized she had an old mother was the interesting one.
I swear this is one of your favorite
Oh,
stories
it
on me.
is. It is. She went everywhere telling people.
I was 5.
Oh, yeah.
I was 5. Okay.
But we were at a really nice restaurant on the 30th floor up in Indianapolis near the monument. And she asked me how old I was. And I was 40. And her face just disintegrated. I could see her. She was sitting on a stack of napkins because they didn't even
They didn't have boosters.
They didn't have booster seats in that. And she said, Lord, she just mouthed it over and over, She said, I have a 40-year-old mother.
You should have ratted Dad out because he was
And
older.
about that
You
time,
totally should have ratted him out.
About that time, it hit her that her dad was older than I. And her head jerked around and she said, well, then how old are you? To him. And he started to laugh and told her. And she couldn't get over her parents were so old. That was a Saturday night.
Mhm.
And Sunday morning at church, she went around telling everyone how old I was. And this one man came
Again,
down
I
through
was
the
5.
This man came down through the hall at church and he said, yes, I think your mother looks very good for 40. So I knew she was going up and down the halls telling everyone.
I was proud of you back then
But-
for aging so well, just like I am now, sweet cheeks.
Yes, and you're going to age well too.
I'm excited about my genetics.
Yeah,
I'm not complaining.
my mother was very pretty
Yeah,
when
she was
died, too.
beautiful too. Yeah.
And so she had I have some good genes. And I passed them on. But we have fun now, which I think is really important. There's all the serious times and the things, to talk. And it
Mhm.
doesn't say we absolutely agree on everything.
No, we frequently don't.
No,
No.
but we just put that in perspective
Mhm.
with what we're doing, what we're
Mhm.
saying, and
Mhm.
our age and our experience.
Yeah.
And I do use that experience a lot.
Yeah, you do call that card in. She
But
she
it's-
plays that card a lot with me.
Let me
Mhm.
tell you, that's one of the best things. One of the only good things about getting older is you have experienced a lot.
Yeah.
And
I look back even just what I've experienced,
Right.
but it gives me so much empathy for the younger ones,
Yep.
And
it's even people or things that people say.
Mhm.
And it's like, she used to be more gullible.
Oh, and I was much more passionate.
Oh
I was
my.
so like I would have been the activist. Like I look at the kids nowadays and I'm like, my dumbass would have been in the streets too. Like I'm not sure I would have had a sign for some of the things that but I mean, like I was just so much more passionate. Like
Yeah.
everything was so much more
Was
important
a
because
huge
I
deal.
didn't understand the system.
Mhm.
I had no idea about the system and I'm talking like high school, early college, that time period of like, let's say 15 to 22, 23,
Yeah.
before I really had
Yeah.
matured. Like you could have convinced me to do a lot of things. And that's a lot of the reason like I'm so adamant about what happens in the school systems now.
Yeah.
Because I think back to all the crap they could have put on me.
Yeah.
And I was a very strong child, but you still
Oh,
could have.
she was a strong child.
I don't know what you're referring to. I have no idea what she's talking about.
How about the shrimp?
Oh God.
She was a rebel rouser from the time she was 4
Again,
or
I was
5.
4.
But she didn't have all the shrimp that it had advertised. I think they said there was 20 shrimp or something, and she said, "No, I've eaten 4, and there's
Yeah, because I was
so many here,
so
and that's not 20."
I was complaining, and my dad looked at me and he said, "Well, Mary Ellen, how do you know? Like, how do you know?" So I lined up all my shrimp. I separated out the tails, the uneaten, and and I counted them up, and I'm like, I'm missing 3. You need to tell them to bring. He's like, you're not going to eat them. It doesn't matter, Father. You paid for it. You paid for these shrimp, and they're not on my plate. Like
Yeah.
I was a lot to handle when I was a kid.
Yeah.
I'm much more mellow now. I'm just okay.
So some of those kind of things.
Yeah.
But yes, when she said she was passionate about it, she was passionate about it.
I was.
But that's just part
Youth.
of her, yes, and particularly her. And I will have to say that was a little more like my mother.
Ah,
Yeah, my mother was.
I was gonna say because so many people that have known you all and then know me are like, where did you get this? Because I don't have the attitude of either of you. Like I really don't. I am
much.
so much more feisty.
That was my mother.
I am pure.
And she was excellent at it, and she was very outgoing. Mary Ellen had just turned 5 when she lost her, so she doesn't.
I don't have many memories.
As many memories as I wish she did, but she was very outgoing, had so many friends, gave a lot of parties, and was just the person that was always out there helping people and doing things. Now, Mary Ellen gets that from her too.
Yeah, I do.
That's what she wants to do with it. But
I try. I feel like I shout to the wind a lot, but I try. I mean, I volunteer in our local community and I rescue animals and I try. I really do try.
Too many animals.
Everybody complains. Okay, they're fine. They're my critters. So they're hanging from the rafters, whatever. They're cute. I can afford them. They're fine.
I can't say too much because I rescue them too.
I know. That's where I get it.
So, but I only have 3.
You have a geriatric dog farm going right now.
Yes.
Like she is the house where they go to retire.
Well, and she used to bring all of hers over to retire at my house.
Yeah, that's because my husband's dog was on crack. He's the craziest terrier and he was driving all of them crazy.
Well, and you had a cat on Prozac too.
Yeah. Oh God, Sammy.
So
Sammy.
I would get the older dogs like Scarlet. I got Scarlet
Katrina.
and Katrina.
And they did not want to come home. Like they would go over there. Like if they had Katrina had an eye surgery and I was like, Mom, can you take her for a week to 2 weeks? Just let her heal up. That way, because we had a puppy. And I was like, that way the puppy won't be, messing with her and whatever.
Yeah, because she had eye surgery.
She had like an eye patch.
She had a lot of stitches.
I mean, the puppy would have just, it's a puppy. So anyway, Katrina enjoyed living with my mom so much. She did not want to come home. Like she would hide from us. We would come over to visit and she would look at us and then she would hide if we got the leash out. We're like, well, you want to go home? She would run and hide every time. And it got to be a thing. Like if she did something wrong at mom's house, she was like, do you want to go back to their house? Trina would tuck tail and go hide and be like, no, I'll never do it again. It wasn't us. She didn't like the puppy. She hated that puppy.
Right.
Oh, she hated him.
Well, he grabbed hold of her tail and would swing her around.
And she'd been through enough.
Yep,
She
had.
survived hurricanes. Like she'd been through enough.
She had.
Ash had a really good comment, if I can find it up here.
Okay.
Did I go past it? Where is that one? There. Strong-willed children become adults who change the world as long as we can hang on for the ride and resist the temptation to tame.
And that is very true.
That is very, very true.
You only want to tame them to be good citizens.
Yeah, critical thinkers.
You don't want to tame their spirit.
Right.
And how they want to change the world. That's what you want. You just want to channel those efforts
Mm-hmm.
in the right way.
Yeah. Yeah. But not wreck it.
No.
No.
No, we've had too much of that.
Yeah, I think that's one of the, my heart truly breaks, and I don't talk about it enough, but I really have full empathy for children now, like the under 25. I have so much empathy for where they're at, what they've been through, what we're putting them through.
They are not taught to be individuals and to use, I have to lean forward. I look like I'm humped over here.
I know,
leaning over here.
She's like,
yes.
she has good posture. She's just all about the mic.
They just really don't get to be the individuals and the creative individuals that they are.
Right.
Because they're just taught to go along with.
Just accept it, move on.
Accept it and just move on, and not to even look for these things, and to be where you read and study for yourself and look at both sides of a situation.
I don't think they do that at all now. I think they just tell you this is the way you're supposed to think. I don't see any evidence that they present a two-sided argument. I don't see any evidence that they're having debate class.
No.
I know they got rid of civics, like they got rid of handwriting.
Yeah. I don't think that they're taught that at all. I think they're taught to go along with everything and think, not think for yourself.
I feel like the strategy has been to make their life so difficult if they question anything that it breaks them to where they don't want to go through
they are
that.
Singled out.
Right. You humiliate them. You put them through this if they mention anything or think differently. And it's a very chilling effect.
My roommate, one of my roommates in college.
Are we going to tell Dora stories?
Yes. It was from Hong Kong.
I love Dora.
And this is one of the things that she said about them coming to the United States to go to college, was that we taught creativity and let them be individuals, where in many of the countries they had to study and recite back just thing after
just
thing, repeat, memorize, and repeat, and pass lots of tests. But she said in the United States, you're taught creativity. And her parents had 4 children, and they sent all 4 of them over here.
And they had escaped communism when they were in Hong Kong. It was still independent. It was not like now where it's its own.
They were actually in China.
Yeah, but they escaped.
Yes, they escaped.
Yeah, they fought hard and got out.
Well, and they wanted him there because he was finishing his doctor's at Columbia in New York at the time, and he was running a plant in China, and he arranged for his wife and 4 children, and I think a couple of maids, got a plane and got them out.
Yeah.
And you'd have to know her mother was a cute little Chinese lady, about 4'8". And she got out with the children and turned around, and he wasn't there. So she chartered a plane and went back in, which upset him to no end. He had to get him out again.
But,
But yes, They
Family was
did.
everything. So you didn't
Family
break up
was,
the family. That's
yeah,
their culture. At least that was the culture.
right.
But going back to what you were saying about why they send their children here, that has always been the thing. Like from all around the world,
Right.
they saved up and scrimped to send their children here to school. Even like, okay, we joke about what is the head of North Korea, Rocket Man, Kim Jong.
Yes.
So he even went to United States. All of his school came from here.
Yes.
So he came here, learned everything, and went back there. So he
Right.
understands our culture and our stupidity really well.
And most of their children, they
Yeah,
wanted them
they
to come to the
yeah,
United States to be educated.
most of them
Um,
do. Yeah.
and I mean, they knew they already had learned a background and could recite everything,
Yeah.
but they wanted them to be creative and
Problem
to
solvers.
have, yes, problem solvers and to have experienced
Hmm.
another country with that
Well,
too.
yeah, another culture, country. I mean, yeah.
Mhm.
And I, current climate, I wouldn't encourage that now, but prior to everything being psychotic, I would have encouraged
Right.
taking internships in another country. I had a lot of
Right.
friends that did that.
You were
And
able to travel and got
yes,
that
yes,
experience that way.
I traveled a
Um,
lot.
yes.
And I'm very grateful for all of that experience that it gives me a much better view of cultures, the way people think,
Mhm.
what's important in certain cultures versus others. And that it's not necessary most of the time, like we always view everything from our lens of how we grew up.
Right.
So we look into another culture
Right.
and we declare that wrong.
We just
And it's
don't
so arrogant.
understand it. We
It's
didn't
so
take the
arrogant.
time
Mm-hmm.
to learn and figure out why they are doing some of the things they do. And
Wow. Yeah.
once we did,
Yeah. Yeah.
we learned from them too. So that was good. But yeah, that was the thing. And you were lucky to have
I
traveled
was.
a lot.
I was.
We just took you along.
We didn't get an every year vacation, but when we took them, they were big and they were good. Like
Well,
we
we took some short ones
yeah,
throughout the
we would take like
year.
a 3 or 4 day, and that might be our vacation for the year. But then once every few years, we had a bigger one. So
Well, you had been on like 50 flights by the time you were 5.
yeah,
So
I
we
don't.
had,
I have to tell you, I don't remember them. I'm just. I don't. I remember my
well, that
luggage.
was, yes,
I
she
remember
had
my
her own
luggage. I had
luggage.
special luggage.
And
I was such a diva.
yes, we were in,
It's your
yes,
fault I was.
we were in Mexico and you were in the elevator and she had on a little dress from the Caribbean.
Mm-hmm.
And this young couple was on the elevator with us and said, "Oh, what a cute dress. Where did you get that here?" And she said, "Oh, I didn't get that here. I got that in, I forget whether it was St. Thomas or something." And they just kind of looked at her. This was a very young couple. And they said, "Oh, well, you're well traveled, aren't you?" So,
She has endless stories of me.
oh, I do.
Endless stories of me doing shenanigans when I was really little because I had no filter.
No,
I had none
no,
at
she
all.
didn't.
At all. I would just say things. And
Right.
sometimes they were good and sometimes they really weren't. And
Yeah.
it was just like, well, here you go. When I got older, I had a filter. Now I have less of a filter.
Well,
I'm not like I was when
we
I was young, but
we learned to filter.
I'm precise. I guess that would be I'm very precise.
You learn to filter it and use it appropriately.
Okay, I have to point this out. So, Born Deplorable, who's another podcaster with us, he just popped on here and asked if he was seeing double. He says he thinks he was watching an interview with the Double Mint twins.
Well, they were from local here,
Were they?
Oh yeah, the Barnstable twins.
I didn't know. I mean,
Yeah, they were from
again,
Louisville.
I was little.
That's right. Yes,
I was
they are
little when these
older.
things were popular.
Yes,
I remember
they
the
were
commercial, but
the double mint.
yeah,
Yeah,
those
yeah.
I just remember girls, and then I remember some boys later on. But I remember they would always show them just putting this gum in their mouth, and it's Double Mint.
Yeah.
and little twins.
Well, you know, she has
Back
the
in the
big party
day.
every year at Derby for diabetes in
Oh,
honor of her husband.
well, that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So
Fun facts with Jane.
she has all the stars come in.
Yeah. Derby's a big thing.
Yep.
Big thing around here.
Yep.
Yep.
It sure is.
Yep.
So
Is there any other parting? Let's see. We're just past an hour, so we're making good time. Is there any other wisdom or anything that you would impart for communications or parenting or teaching? Because those are all your wheelhouse.
yes. I think I've said most of them that are the most important is communication is keep that line open.
Mm.
Be sure that your children know that you love them no
Mhm.
matter what. And there are days they try you, but you still love them.
Probably
And
did that a lot.
you know, and you think, oh, sometimes you'll think, oh, I just wish they didn't do this and that and weren't so outgoing or something. But no, that's what you want them to be. You want them to be themselves. You want them to be creative.
Mhm.
And you still need to foster that, even though it may sting every now and then, because they are that individual.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm very proud of her. Very proud of her.
Aw,
And I know her dad would be too.
thank you.
Mhm.
Half the time I think you're irritated with me.
Well, you know, we're different generations and we think differently. So
Yeah,
that's
we prioritize differently. I think that's where most of our
Oh,
conflict in
we-
our relationship comes from.
right.
I've gotten into the habit of understanding what you prioritize and trying to compensate my behavior or what I'm doing to understand that
Yes.
and to I don't want to say appease, but to compromise,
right. Because
you know.
we grew up in different times. And that means
Yeah,
that
because
I had different
you were a child in the
experiences.
50s. In the
Oh,
50s, my
yeah.
God, the stories of her growing
Oh.
up, she had so much fun. I have no stories that are fun. None. None. I have none.
Well, and I still get
She literally grew up
together.
in like Greece. Like Greece was her high school.
Yeah. And
Yeah. So fun.
you know, I still have those friends.
Yeah.
And
We
there
had
was
breakfast with one of them a couple days ago.
Yep. We still get together once a month. There's a group of us that are
Mhm.
local, but there was 11 of us, and 2 of them have died. But the rest of them, we still get together. We still communicate every week, if not more. And
Mm.
we are spread from DC to Baltimore to Texas to Georgia to Cleveland to Indianapolis to
Mhm.
all around.
Yeah.
And so we still communicate. And I don't think you do this with
No.
the people that you grew up with.
No.
But
I've
we
well, and since
established a much different thing
I
in
kept
growing up and
yeah,
fun.
like I
that we
kept up a
had.
little bit with Facebook, but then I got so mad in 2020 I nuked my Facebook. I was so freaking I was mad with all the stupid posts, all the stupid
Right.
people, and I felt like I was getting shadow banned for no reason because I was simply asking questions. I was careful not to voice opinions. I
Well,
was
I would
literally asking
say
questions
too that
and I didn't understand.
when I grew up,
So, no.
women didn't have the choices that you have.
Yes, that is
And
true.
all of us were either nurses
Or
or teachers.
That was it.
Every single one of us
Yeah.
pursued that.
Yeah.
And the other one was secretaries, but none of us turned out to be
Yeah.
secretaries. So
Half the time, wasn't that like how they found a husband was a secretary? Wasn't that like a popular
yeah,
And I guess maybe that goes back more into the 30s, 40s.
but
Like that was part of the thing,
you
maybe.
know, I had an uncle that told
I'm basing
me,
this on Hollywood. It's probably not accurate.
I had an uncle that told me I would never graduate and be single, that I would get married before I graduated because most women did. They found a husband at college.
Well, you were smart enough so that
And
you were
so
viewed as good.
I graduated.
Yeah, you did.
Then he said that I would never teach a day and be single. And I taught 4 years single.
Well, a lot of that
So,
was because of the war.
yep.
So
I met my husband, but then he was in the army. It was Vietnam.
their first date was a blind date.
Yes.
And was it your third date
Our third date was his going away party
to Nam?
to Vietnam.
Yeah.
So we wrote letters every day
Mm-hmm.
and things, but you know, it was 4 years, and that uncle had said, you know, you'll never teach a day single.
Well, maybe he just thought you were just a wonderful woman that any man would want. Maybe we're interpreting that incorrectly.
No, it's just what women did at the time.
Yeah. I mean, I always remember
They
the first
really
time
did.
I watched what was that little movie, Gidget?
Oh yeah.
Cute little movie. But the whole time I was so offended that all of her friends were making fun of her because she didn't have a boyfriend and she was like 16, and they're like, oh, her life is ruined and all that. I mean, it was like so dramatic. And I was like, dude, it's the summer.
But you
Like,
know, that's what girls were
That's-
supposed to do at
Mhm.
that time, you know. Grow up, get married, have children, and that was your life.
yeah.
And so it was different.
But you know, it wasn't a bad life. You know,
Oh, we had a wonderful time.
yeah.
We
It
really
wasn't
had
it wasn't
good
a
time.
bad thing. Like having the defined roles of men and women now, looking back, like looking at where society is now, where I feel like everything is disrespected and falling apart on
Yeah.
both sides. Like I don't think either gender is happy. First off, I don't think men or women are happy right now.
Okay.
And I don't think either one is doing what they enjoy in general. Like I know from statistics, the young people aren't even dating. They're not, like, young men are going years without dating that are in their 20s. Like it's so unlike
Well, and
even when I was growing up, you
we
know?
hung out in groups.
Yeah.
Like there was
that
my
was the
group of
greatest thing. Like
girls,
we
and
didn't
there
do
was
that.
a
And
group of boys.
yeah, and you had all of
and
these activities that you could do.
We just did things together.
Hmm.
We went to coffee houses.
Yeah.
We
And
went
when I was
sledding.
when I was in school,
and
you had
all the parents let us come.
we had the movies
was
and we had the
wonderful.
mall when I was in school. There was no place to go. And she would tell me all these stories about all this. Oh, we went here and we went to a sock hop and we went, and I'm like, I would
Yeah.
love to do these things. I don't have any of this shit.
Right. You
Didn't have any
you
of it.
didn't get to do them like
Yeah.
we did. And they were so much fun.
Yeah.
They really were.
Bring
and-
sock hop back.
Yeah,
There we go.
maybe.
Maybe.
But I'm sorry that that has changed so much, and that
Yeah.
teenagers don't get to experience that. And I think that's really a shame. I think
Mhm.
sometimes they just didn't get to do the things they should have
Right.
and experience those as young people.
Right.
And sometimes they just get married, and you see 2 or 3
Yeah.
times they're divorced because I don't think they got to really have fun before they got married. So,
Aw.
yeah.
Ash says her mom's parents met on a blind date, knew they wanted to get married after only 3 weeks, and were together until death.
Well,
That's
that's
beautiful.
almost ours
Yeah.
with that too, because
Yeah.
that was our situation, meeting on a blind date.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't date anyone else.
Yeah, that was
And
it.
We were married.
I did not have that experience at all. I had pretty much the opposite.
Yeah. We were
I,
married in 68.
I dated mostly in college.
Yes.
The school that I went to, you ran a big risk in high school if you went out with a boy and they got mad at you. They told tales on you, and then your reputation was ruined and you were treated differently. So I just avoided that by never dating. And when I did finally date, I dated a boy in a different school. So if he ran his mouth, it wouldn't affect me. That was my high school strategy, and it worked.
See, we didn't have to worry about Facebook and
Yeah.
all of that
I
kind
didn't
of thing.
I didn't have any of that stuff.
And
but still.
so, we could just be ourselves. And
Mhm.
if somebody told some tale, the others just said, oh, that's not right. and brushed it off.
Yeah, they didn't do that when I was
I
in school, and
know.
I'm sure they don't now.
I'm sure they
I'm
don't.
sure they don't
either.
now. I'm sure they just run their whatevers.
Take the opportunity.
And don't
to-
even get me started on OnlyFans because I really don't understand that culture at all. Like I really don't understand that culture. The popularity of it.
Which one?
OnlyFans?
I'm not even sure I know that one.
Well, that's okay, sweetie. It's really not your bag. It's really not your bag.
Well,
It's not my bag either.
so I know it wouldn't be my bag.
Pretty much. Her bag is Hallmark style movies. Like if it's a sweet,
Oh.
happy, that's her bag. A good
That's it.
comedy, a romance. That's it. That's all she's going to participate in.
You know, I want the happy syndromes right now. I don't
Oh
want
my God.
to.
Yeah. Now
I just don't want any of the
that's like
other awful stuff. I think we've got
Mhm.
enough of that in the world.
reality is hard enough.
And
That's
I
like
want to be happy.
Chicks and Flicks. That's why we're only watching, like, I'm not watching anything that would relate necessarily to current news. I'm not choosing it for that. I'm choosing
Yeah.
stuff that I loved when I was young. So
Yeah.
we've watched like Ferris Bueller's Day Off and The Princess Bride, and we're doing we're doing Airplane this week.
Uh-oh.
I love Airplane, you
Yeah,
guys.
that's funny.
Yeah, please
That
tune
is
in for
funny.
Airplane from 1980. If you like Mel Brooks comedies, Airplane is for you. If you like
Yeah.
completely inappropriate, could never get made now, this is the film for you.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
I just don't even like some of the Hallmark now. If it wasn't made a couple of years ago, I
Yeah.
don't watch it.
Well, they're sacking that CEO. They sacked her.
Yes, but they kept her on the board.
Well,
so she
go-
still has some
say.
say.
I
in
bet
it,
they couldn't get her
and
out of the contract. I wonder.
I don't
Because I don't know
know
why you would fire someone and still keep them
And
in that role unless you were contractually obligated.
right, and
And
they
you
were
couldn't get
they
rid
were
of 'em.
losing.
Yeah, they've been losing money.
They've been losing.
She took over in
money.
2020 and their numbers have crumbled.
Right, and they've lost a lot of viewers.
I mean, the
that
stories
canceled their.
got
subscriptions.
stupid.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just stupid.
Well, one of the stars that left it said, "I got tired of playing a fireman." He played it a lot.
He was a very good fireman, damn it.
Yes, he
I know who
was.
you're talking about. He was
Yeah.
a great fireman, okay?
Yeah.
He was very handsome. But
Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
I mean, the
he
stories
left there to.
I mean, the
venture out
joke of
to
Hallmark
others.
is it's script 22B versus 22A. Like it's the same script. You just plug different characters in and change the town a little. It got even worse. And yeah, it's so freaking bad. Well, anyway, I'm squirreling off on Hallmark. It's easy to do since I love film and I'm into film.
Yep.
And I can prattle on about film for a long time. So I don't see any other questions. Did anybody else in the chat have any questions that they wanted to ask my communication expert for this week? I'm going to try and I have a life coach I'm working on getting. Next week, we have TR, for those of you that remember my guest that was on here talking about Schumann resonance. She's going to be coming back. We're going to be talking about, you know what, I need to touch base with her because we've pitched around like 3 or 4 different things we wanted to look into talking about detoxing. She actually has a lot of knowledge on toxic things, parasites, everything like that. She's had to do that with her health. Like me, she was misdiagnosed with a bunch of stuff, got sicker and sicker and sicker, and then had to figure it out on her own because the medical industry failed her. So I know I don't know if we're going to hit that next week or if we're going to hit it later, but yeah. So that's TR. I'm working on getting Kevin on, and I'm also going to have Herschel and I on this month because it's our 20-year wedding anniversary, and we have survived with a healthy marriage and we have not choked each other. So I want to celebrate that.
I think you should.
Yeah. I mean, 20 years in today's world, it's not like
20
when
years is.
it was much easier in your time, I think, than now.
I think so.
When I look at the social media and the influence it has in pushes all forms of your life, it really is invasive.
Yes.
And I think it adds so much more pressure to all of your interpersonal
But I
relationships.
think choosing the right
Oh,
person that
yes.
has
Oh,
your
yes. And that's
values,
something I want to get
and
into.
it's your
Yeah,
values that
because
count on that.
he and I have an interesting story. And one of the reasons that we have been so successful is we sat down very openly when we were talking about getting engaged, and literally we made pros and cons lists together, and we talked about what our deal breakers were. Like, what is it that you would have to do to make me leave you? Like, what is the absolute drop dead, I will not tolerate this? And we made lists. And luckily, all the same things were on our lists. Like, literally every
That's
item was identical on the list. And I was like, okay, we understand each other. We're not going to get confused. You know?
yeah. Well, one of the best things that happened for us was writing letters
Yes.
because he was away, and you
Yes.
wrote every day.
And we write journals to each other
And
every morning.
I think that's where you really get to know a person,
Yes.
is through that.
When they have to write down their thoughts.
They write down their
You
thoughts,
see their
and
soul.
if you got to do it every day, believe me, you've got to come up with some things. And to make it interesting, to send that letter every day, like, I'm fine, it rained,
I didn't get shot today.
Yeah.
The Jeep didn't blow up.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was a different day.
Yeah.
But yeah, it really, we learned a lot about each other through those letters.
Yeah. You still have them.
I do. And he had all of mine.
Mm-hmm.
So
I still want to put them together I want to scan them for, to
Mhm.
keep them. And then I want to put them in a book form somehow, so we could have the, like,
there's
the
not
letter
as
in the
many
book,
of
or
mine because they were
because of the flood.
downstairs when
Yeah.
that flood came.
They got ruined in the flood.
So a lot of them got ruined.
But we got yours.
Oh yeah,
We got yours.
we've got
We still make a book.
mine that he did. There might have been a few of those others
Yeah.
still left, but
Mm.
that's the way you really get to know people.
Yeah.
And
Make
now,
that difference.
Yeah. It wasn't a rush to a marriage either.
My thing with social media is it's so much easier for people to hide who they are. I see so much more of people saying, well, he seemed to be this way, and then, a few months after, he switched into this. And I mean, we used to hear that, but now it's like social media adds this whole shield, this illusion that people have.
Well, and if you date long enough, it's
Yeah,
going to slip
It'll
out.
slip out. Yeah, I
And
don't recommend.
That was ours for several years.
Yeah, in today's
And
world,
so-
I don't recommend fast engagements and any of that stuff because of the risk.
Yeah.
The risk is so much different,
It is
and I
very
wouldn't even
different.
recommend living with someone for a long period, just because, again, you're commingled. And if you don't know them really well, that's dangerous. That really is dangerous. I wouldn't recommend it. And Mary's wise words. Here we go. I'm babbling on again.
Oh,
Well, thank you for coming and doing this.
it was fun.
It was fun. Now you get to see what I do, because you always hear,
Yes.
I'm doing a podcast, Mom.
Right.
I'll call you when I'm done. Now she's like, now she's done one with me. You'll have to come back.
Yeah. Okay.
You can come back and do another.
All
We'll think
right.
of another fun topic.
All right.
Okay. We'll do that. Thank you, everybody, for coming and for being a part of this with us. We so greatly appreciate you. I know we have Patriot Theater coming up with Sean and Duffy. I have no idea what movie they're playing. I suspect it might be Underworld, but I'm not sure. I hope it is, because I'll tune in and watch that. I saw them pulling some of that, so I kind of wonder if maybe that's it. But I don't know. We'll see. I don't know what they'll have planned, but I know it'll be something fantastic. Orion and I will be back tomorrow with Truth Blitz at 1 Eastern, and whatever the correlating time zone you're in for 1 Eastern is. And then, of course, everything zooms through the week. So we have all the night shows. We have Truth Blitz. We have Trend Analysis. We have Chicks and Flicks on Thursday. Yep. It's going to be a big week. So tune in. Please come see us. Thank you guys all the time. Thank you so, so much for coming and hanging out with us. I'm always grateful when you spend your time with me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see if it plays when I hit the button. Maybe.
What is 1,400 pills mean?